All right. Welcome, welcome, algebra. Thank you for the applause once again. You guys are just incredibly kind. Okay, as promised, we are solving quadratic functions using the quadratic formula today. So, if you recall, ax squared plus bx plus c, that's our standard form of a quadratic function. And the reason why it's solved for 0 instead of y here is because this indicates that you are to solve the equation. Now remember, we've solved by taking square roots and graphing before we left, and then again next week we'll solve by factoring. So this is the fourth way, which is quadratic formula. All right, so here is this big giant formula for you, and we talked about it last time. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Couple of things I want to point out here. This entire thing is divided by 2 times a. So until you have like one number up here, you don't want to divide anything by 2a, okay? So pretend there's like a huge set of parentheses around this. That's the first thing. The second thing, if you'll remember from my last video here on the discriminant, this plus or minus means that you maybe do the formula twice. So you do x equals the opposite of b plus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And then also you might have to do the minus version. So negative b minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. And what determines how many times you have to do the quadratic formula is the discriminant. So remember last time we found that the discriminant, that's just that b squared minus 4ac part, right? And we found that there's 3 different options that you could get. So you could get a positive number. That would mean that there's 2 solutions. So guess what? I would have to do both of those. If I get 0 as my answer, there's 1 solution. So I only have to do the positive or the negative. I mean, it doesn't matter. It'll be the same thing either way. And then if I get a negative number, I have no solutions. So guess how many times I have to do the quadratic formula? None, if I have a negative number in there. So that's the reason why we teach the discriminant first, because it can save you a lot of time. Because if you don't do the discriminant first, or you don't understand like that relationship the discriminant has to the number of solutions, every time you go to solve using quadratic formula, you'll do it twice. And sometimes you'll only have to do it once, and sometimes you won't have to do it at all. And so you'll be doing way more work than is absolutely necessary some of the time. Okay. So we're going to do like each problem is a column, okay? So we're going to first, as we always do in this, we're going to find a, b, and c. So I have x squared plus 6x minus 2 equals 0. Remember, there's a 1 there. So a is 1. B is 6. C is negative 2. The first thing I'm going to do is find the discriminant. Remember, that's b squared minus 4ac. We did that last time. So b squared, so 6 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 2. 6 squared is 36. 4 times 1 is 4, times negative 2 is negative 8. So 36 minus negative 8, but really 36 plus 8, which is 44. So that's a positive number. How many solutions do I have? 2. So I know I'm going to have to do the quadratic formula twice on this one, okay? So I plug a, b, and c into now this entire quadratic formula, except guess what? I've already done this. So I found that already. It's 44. I can just put that in there right now, okay? So I have x equals the opposite of b, 6, plus or minus the square root of this b squared minus 4ac. But we already did b squared minus 4ac, and we found that it's 44. So I'm going to put that right here. Over 2 times a, which is 1. And here's where my strong suggestion would be your calculator. And the reason that my strong suggestion would be your calculator is because 44 is not a perfect square, okay? And so it's just easier to do this in your calculator because the square root of 44 is, you know, somewhere between 6 and 7, and it's really not a good idea to estimate it like that at this point. Okay, so remember how to get a fraction in your calculator, and again, I will remind you that you can download, I sent a link to download a graphing calculator app that looks exactly like the TI 84 Plus CE that we have in class that I have in front of me right now. And I sent that in like the original document on how to do online learning. So if you haven't done that yet, you're really gonna need it now. All right, so to get a fraction, because you want this to look as close to this as possible, okay? So hit second, no, just kidding, that's a lie. Don't hit second, sorry. Hit alpha, y equals. And see how it says n over d at number 1? That means a basic fraction. So now I have a numerator and I have a denominator, and I would type this in exactly how it appears here. So negative 6 in parentheses. And then remember, I have to do this twice, but I can't do it at the same time. So I'm just going to do the plus version first. So plus the square root of 44. And then in order to like get out of this, I have to arrow over. Now I have to arrow down to get in the denominator. 2 times 1, I mean, you can plug that in like that if you want, or you can simply do 2 times 1. But just for fun, you know, I'll show you can do this, okay? And now hit enter. And you're like, that's a crazy long number. Yes, we are going to round this to the nearest hundredth, okay? So that 6 would indicate that the 1 becomes a 2. So my first answer here is x equals 0.32. Now I have to get a second answer. So my first answer was the plus, my second answer was the minus. My second answer, I can do one of 2 things. I can type all this in again, or I can hit a fun little button sequence, second enter. And if I hit that, if I hit second and then enter, it brings my equation back up again, which is fantastic because now I can just arrow through, because the only thing I need to change is that plus has to become a minus. Don't make it a negative, by the way. So like, don't press this. That's a no-no. Press minus, okay? So minus the square root of 44 over 2 times 1. And hit enter. And then I get another number. And again, I'm going to round it to the nearest hundredth. So that 6 over here would make this 1 become a 2. And I have my second answer as negative 6.32. Okay? All right. Now, next one. 3x squared plus 10x minus 1 equals 0. What is A? What is B? What is C? A is 3. B is 10. C is negative 1. So first I'm going to find the discriminant. So b squared minus 4ac. B is 10. So 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 1. This is also something you can put in your calculator if you want. So 10 squared minus 4 times 3 times, what was that, negative 1. And I get 112. And that's a positive number, so that means I have 2 solutions. Now, I'm going to take this 112 and I'm going to plug that in right now for the discriminant so I don't forget that that's what that is. Okay, so x equals negative b plus or minus, we already have that, b squared minus 4ac, that's 112, over 2a. So opposite of b, b was 10. So I'm going to put 10 in here. And then over 2a, a is 3. So I'm going to put 3 right there. And then, again, go back to my calculator. Just going to make it so you can possibly see this entire thing. Okay. So I can do alpha y equals to get that fraction. And just start writing in or typing in the top. Negative, parentheses, 10. And I have to do this twice, right? Because I have two solutions, as I know. So I'm going to do the plus version first and the minus version. So plus the square root, which is second x squared, in case you forget how I get that, 112, which was my discriminant, arrow out, so arrow to the right, now arrow down to the denominator, and I put 2 times 3. Again, if I want to do that, I mean, that's 6, right? You can easily do that in your head, but it's okay. And I hit enter, and I get 0.097. So this is an interesting one because we round to the nearest hundredth, right? So you'd round to where that 9 is, but that 7 turns that 9 into a 0, and then that turns the 0 into a 1. So it's the only time where you really kind of, where it looks like you're rounding twice, right? But you're not. So you have x equals 0.10. And I should, this entire time, by the way, I should be putting this like approximately equal to, because these are all approximate answers. The real answers are actually like you leave the radical that way, but we're not going to do it that way. All right, and remember to get that to come up again, I hit second enter. So second enter, and it brings that whole thing back up again, arrow up, oops, just kidding. First arrow over, so you're in the equation. Now arrow up. And then arrow left over to the plus, change it to minus. Remember, do not change it to negative, change it to minus. Hit enter, and I get negative 3.430500874. I'm going to round it to that 3. And after it is 0, so it's just going to stay as 3. So my second answer for this one will be x is approximately equal to negative 3.43. All right, so I'm going to show you one other way of doing this where you don't necessarily, if you don't want to, have to find the discriminant first. Oops, I don't know why I turned that off. And it's just, you can put all of it in your calculator, okay? So if you want to try to do this, you can. I would suggest being incredibly careful with parentheses. So we'll do it that way real quick. So A here is 3, B is 14, C is 2. Now, we're not going to find the discriminant. We're not going to see how many solutions. We're just going to take all of this and plug it in there. The reason why I usually don't do it this way is because there's a really likely chance that this will get screwed up, okay? So what this is going to look like, let me get a piece of paper here so we can kind of see. So instead of like having the discriminant here that you're going to plug in, you're actually just going to plug in, put it over here, it'd be easier, to the entire formula, okay? Sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to make this work a little bit better. All right, so my formula is x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So if I do x equals the opposite of b, so 14, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 14, remember this has to be in parentheses squared, minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is 2, all over 2 times a, which is 3. So if you want to, you can plug all of that into your calculator as is, rather than finding the discriminant. Just be super careful with it, okay? Maybe I'll do it this way. I can't put like the same screen into it. There we go. Too far. Okay, so I am going to, once again, hit alpha y equals to pull up a fraction. I'm going to hit 1, or just enter, doesn't matter. And then I'm going to try to put this entire thing in here using the same exact sets of parentheses that I have, okay? So first negative, make sure that is negative, not minus, 14 parentheses. we're going to do the plus first. So plus square root, so second x squared of, in parentheses, 14 squared minus 4 times 3 in parentheses, by the way, and then 2 in parentheses. And I don't do the times symbol in here at all. I just do the parentheses. And again, that's really just because if there's negatives, it's just a better idea to have those. All right, compare the top of this to the top of this. We have negative 14 in parentheses. We have plus. We have a square root symbol. We have 14 in parentheses squared minus 4, and then 3 in parentheses, 2 in parentheses. Looks good. So arrow out of that, arrow down, and we just have to do 2 times 3. So 2 times 3. Again, you can put 6, but whatever. And then hit enter. And I get negative 0.14752, blah, 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 blah. So again, we are rounding to the 100th. So that 0.14, the 7 would make it a 5. So my first answer here for my plus is x equals negative 0.15. And then I'm going to hit, to make my life easier, second enter. Arrow to the left first to get into the equation, go up. Now arrow all the way over back out here. Remember, the only thing you change is this right before the square root sign. Don't change that negative. That's not, or that minus. That's not a good idea. Change this minus. So change that plus to minus. Hit enter. And I got negative 4.519146175. So again, round to that. So the 9 would round that up to a 2. And your answer would be x, oops, I keep forgetting the dumb approximately, I'm sorry. X approximately equal to negative 4.52. Okay. So turning this over, I'm going to do like one of the top ones because it doesn't have any of the, the stuff to fill in. You just have to do it all on your own here. So we'll do one of those, and then I want to show you something you sometimes have to do on the bottom too. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at let's do this one right here. Okay, we'll just start in order. So A is 1, B is 10, C is negative 22. Okay, so you have, and again, you can find the discriminant first, which is what I would suggest you do. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. So I'll show this both ways. I'll show it just plugging straight into this formula. So let's write it out again. X equals the opposite of B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC over 2A. So X equals the opposite of B, which we decided was 10, plus or minus the square root of B, which is 10, squared, minus 4 times A, which is 1, times C, which is negative 22, over 2 times 1. All right, let's try to put all that in our calculator. And remember, we're going to have to do a plus version and a minus version. So do x equals, we'll do the plus version, and then the minus version, x equals. So we'll do plus first, and we'll change it in our calculator to minus. So alpha y equals, hit 1 or enter. Negative, in parentheses, 10 plus square root, so second x squared, of, again in parentheses, 10 squared minus 4, and then times 1 in parentheses, times negative 22 in parentheses, over 2 times 1, again, that's 2, but whatever. So compare, make sure that yours in the calculator looks exactly the same as it does over here. So I have negative 10 plus square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 22 over 2 times 1. Great. So hit enter. I get 1.8556. That 6 will turn, or excuse me, that 5 will turn that 5 to a 6. So I get my first answer is 1.86. And then I do second, enter, bring that back up, arrow left first, and then arrow up to the denominator, go all the way back to right before the square root, change plus to minus, hit enter again, and my second answer is negative 11.86. Okay? All right. I want to do the second one too, because I know how it's going to turn out. So let's take a look at this one here. So I have A is 1, B is 3. Shoot, no, it's not going to turn out that way. I want to find one that was going to have a no solution. How about, let's do this. We're going to change this minus to a plus, and then it will actually work out where this will be a negative, because I want you to see what happens in your calculator when you get a negative. So we're going to change again. That minus on here is now changed to a plus. Okay. So x equals opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay. And I'm going to have to like take up part of this one too, because it's such a long problem. So x equals the opposite of b, so opposite of 3, plus or minus the square root of, in parentheses, 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 7, all over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, and I'm going to do the plus and I'm going to do the minus. Maybe. I probably won't have to, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to put this equation into my calculator. So alpha y equals, enter. And then negative or opposite of, in parentheses, 3 plus the square root, the second x squared. Let's see if I can make that bigger. Of 3 in parentheses squared minus 4 times 1 times 7, and then make sure that looks the same, minus 3 plus 3 squared minus 4 times 7. It does good. So go down, and 2 times 1, or simply just 2, hit enter. Ooh, error, non-real answers. Well, here's what this means. This means that there are no real solutions to this one. I'm not going to do this one. Okay, so at this point, this is why it is beneficial, I believe, to do the discriminant first. Okay, because had I just done that, so had I just done b squared minus 4ac, I would have had 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times 7. 3 squared is 9, minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 7 is 28. 9 minus 28 is going to give me not a positive number, right? It's going to give me negative 19. So if I see that, I'm like, oh, that's negative. Well, that's going to be a no solution. So then guess what? I wouldn't have had to do this part and put it in the calculator. So this is why I think it's important to do the discriminant first. It just, like I said, it can save you some time. Okay. Now, lastly, sometimes, as we know, we have to mess with things or equations before we can solve them. So remember, standard form has to be set equal to 0. So in this one, I have x squared minus 4x minus 6, and it has to look like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Well, I have my x squared here. I have my bx, but my c's over here. I need to move it. And in order to move it, I, of course, need to subtract it, right? So I have x squared minus 4x, and remember that minus 6 just hangs out by itself, equals 0. Now I can do quadratic formula on that. So I would list my A, my B, and my C, and I would do quadratic formula there, okay? So if you want to know what that would look like, it'd be x equals opposite of b, so minus minus 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6 over 2 times 1. Let's do this one in your calculator for fun because it has a ton of negatives here. So you just want to make sure you have the right thing. So if you hit alpha y equals, get a fraction again. This one, you have to do negative and then parentheses negative 4. And remember, these do have to be negative signs, not minus signs, but the one in between has to be a minus sign when you get there. But we'll do the plus first. Square root of, in parentheses, negative 4 squared. This is one, and we have not had a negative b since we've been putting these in the calculator. If you do not put that in parentheses, you will get the wrong answer every single time unless b is 0. But other than that, you will. So be very, very careful with your parentheses there. So minus 4 times 1 times negative 6, and then go down, and then 2 times 1 in the denominator. Make sure everything's cool. So I have negative 4 plus negative 4 squared, that's in parentheses, minus 4 times 1 times negative 6 over 2 times 1. That's what I have here. Life is good. Hit enter. And my plus x is 5.16, again, approximately. Hit second, enter, pull that back up. Get over to between or right before the square root symbol. Hit minus, hit enter again. And my second one, my negative or my minus between is x is approximately equal to negative 1.16. All right, now on these, we're just gonna make sure they're in standard form, but I won't make you solve them right now. So in this, the 9x has to move over. Of course, it would go between these. So this would be 3x squared. This is minus 9x. We have to add it to both sides. So plus 9x plus 7 equals 0. And then over here, the x squared I should move. So it's minus, excuse me, minus x squared. So I'm going to add x squared. And it'll be x squared plus 14x minus 2 equals 0. All right, so we're done with that. The homework that you guys have online, ignore this because that's not what yours is. It doesn't say that on yours. You have to solve using the quadratic formula. I'm not saying you have to do this entire sheet. I'm saying it's a good idea if you do a couple of them, okay? You can find the discriminant first, or you can simply just, plug in all the numbers, put it in your calculator. There are 2 pages to this, so 1 through 18, do as many as you want. Remember, in ones like number 7, like that is preventing it from being solved right now, so you have to move that 4 first. So if you subtract 4, you actually have a like term here with 7. So this would be 4b squared plus 8b plus 3 equals 0. So make sure that you set them all to 0 in order to do that first. Like I said, this has 2 pages here. It's front and back on mine, but on the document that's posted online, it's a PDF, so it just goes page 1, 2, 3, 4. Page 3 and 4 have the answers. So once you do a couple of these, or I would do one of them, check your answer. If it's right, do one more. If that one's also right, then I would say you're good and you're done. If you are checking your answers and you're not getting the right ones, certainly look and see okay, is it a problem with how I'm putting into the calculator? Or, do I not have parentheses around it? Or something like that. And if you still have huge issues with that, obviously, join my office hours. These would be difficult ones to email, I think, but, you can certainly try. All right. Well, you guys have a great day. And don't forget, Delta Math is due Friday at 3. And Delta Math only has discriminant and quadratic formula on there. So you should be good to go. All right. Have a good one.